Every empire believes it will last forever. The marble, the armies, the gold, poured into the shape of a king's face. The name carved deep into stone, so that 1,000 years from now someone will still read it and tremble. And every single one of them is gone. Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. Dust now, buried under other people's cities. But once, there was a young man who watched an empire swallow his whole world. Dragged from his home in chains, marched hundreds of miles across the desert, handed as a prize to the very king whose army had burned his city to the ground. He was maybe 15 years old. He had lost everything. And he said something that should have gotten him executed. He looked at the most powerful throne on earth, and he said, "This will pass." Not just this king, not just this empire, all of them. Every crown, every army, every kingdom that has ever frightened you. He said there was another kingdom coming, one that no army could break and no century could bury. And then he spent the next 70 years proving that he believed it, in the mouth of a den of lions, in the heart of a burning furnace, at the tables of kings who could kill him with a nod. His name was Daniel. One book bears his name, 2 halves, 6 impossible stories, and 4 strange and burning visions. For 2,500 years, people have argued over what it all means. But underneath every story runs a single idea. The idea that let a captive sleep soundly in a den of lions. By the end of this, you will understand it. So let's begin where Daniel's story begins, with a city on fire. The year is around 605 before Christ. Jerusalem has fallen. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, the most powerful man alive, has broken the city and plundered the temple of God. And he takes the best of it home, not just the gold, the people. He wants the brightest young men of Judah, the strong, the handsome, the clever, the future of a nation, carried off to serve his own. Among them are 4 young men who will not bend: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. And the very first thing Babylon does is try to erase them. It takes away their names, Hebrew names that carried the name of the God of Israel inside them, and it gives them new ones, soaked in the names of Babylon's gods. Daniel becomes Belteshazzar, and his 3 friends become names you already know: Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. New names, new language, new gods. 3 years of training to turn a Hebrew boy into a Babylonian courtier. This is how an empire swallows a soul, not with chains, with comfort. And it starts, of all places, at the dinner table. They are to eat the king's own food, rich meat, fine wine, the finest table in the world. But Daniel resolves in his heart that he will not defile himself with the king's food. It is a small thing, a quiet thing. No speeches, no rebellion, just a line drawn deep inside where no one else can see it. He asks the official in charge for a test. Give us 10 days, only vegetables and water. Then compare us to the young men who eat the king's rich food. The official is terrified. If these 4 waste away, it is his own head. But he agrees to 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, Daniel and his friends are better in appearance and healthier than all the rest. It is a tiny story, but it sets the pattern for everything that follows. Faithfulness in the smallest thing when no one is watching. Because the man who will not bend at the dinner table is the man who will not bow before a furnace. And then, one night, the king has a dream. Nebuchadnezzar wakes shaken to his core, and he cannot forget it. A dream that feels like it came from somewhere far beyond him. So he calls in all his wise men, and he gives them an impossible command. Tell me the dream. Not just what it means. Tell me what I dreamed, and if you cannot, I will have every wise man in Babylon torn to pieces. It is a death sentence for all of them, including Daniel, who has not even been in the room. So Daniel does the one thing no one else thought to do. He asks God to show him, and that night, in a vision, the mystery is revealed. Daniel stands before the king, and he says something remarkable. No wise man can do this, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. And then he begins to describe the dream. A statue, enormous, terrifying, towering over the king in his sleep. Its head was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze. Its legs were iron, and its feet were a strange, brittle mixture, iron and soft clay, pressed together but never truly joined. And then, a stone. A single stone, cut out of a mountain by no human hand. It strikes the statue at its feet, and the whole colossus, gold, silver, bronze, iron, shatters and blows away like chaff on the wind. And the stone that struck it begins to grow into a mountain, until it fills the entire earth. Then Daniel tells the king what it means, and it is staggering. You, O king, are the head of gold, but after you will rise another kingdom, and another, and another. Gold gives way to silver, silver to bronze, bronze to iron. 4 kingdoms, each one rising, ruling, and falling in its turn. The whole march of human history, seen from above as a single statue. Now, here honesty matters. For centuries, readers have named those 4 kingdoms differently. Many have seen Babylon, then Persia, then Greece, then Rome. Others read them as Babylon, Media, Persia, and Greece. The book itself does not label every metal, and faithful readers have disagreed for a very long time. But on the one thing that matters most, the dream could not be clearer. In the days of those kingdoms, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. It will break all the others in pieces, and it will stand forever. That is the stone, not carved by human hands, not raised by armies. A kingdom that starts small, like a single rock, and ends up filling the whole world. Every empire in that statue thought it was the whole picture. Every one of them was only a layer waiting for the stone. Hold on to that image. It is the key to the entire book. But Nebuchadnezzar does not learn the lesson. Not yet. Because the next thing he does is build a statue of his own. Not gold at the head and clay at the feet. Gold all the way down. 90 feet of it, blazing on the plain of Dura. The dream had said his kingdom would one day end. So he builds a god that says, no, it won't. And he gives one command. When the music plays, everyone bows. Everyone. And whoever will not bow is thrown, alive, into a blazing furnace. The music plays, and a whole plain of people falls to the ground like wheat in the wind. All except 3. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's 3 friends, standing straight up in an ocean of bowed backs. They are reported at once, and the king, in a fury, gives them one last chance, bow or burn. And then he sneers, and who is the God who will deliver you from my hand? Their answer is one of the bravest things any human being has ever said. Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods, or worship the golden image you have set up. But if not, feel the weight of those 3 words. We believe God can save us, and even if he does not, we still will not bow. That is a faith that does not depend on the outcome. The king is enraged. He orders the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, so hot that the soldiers who throw them in are killed by the heat, and the 3 men fall, bound, into the fire. And then the king leaps up off his throne. His face has gone white. Did we not throw 3 men into the fire? Because I see 4, walking, unbound, unburned. And the fourth, he says, the fourth is like a son of the gods. No one can say for certain who that fourth figure was. An angel, a messenger. Many Christians have seen the Son of God himself walking in the flames. The text keeps it wrapped in wonder. But one thing is beyond doubt. They were not alone in that fire. Whatever the furnace was, God was in it with them. The men walk out without a single hair singed, not even the smell of smoke on their robes, and the most powerful king in the world blesses the God of 3 exiles who refused to bow. God did not keep them out of the fire, he met them inside it. And yet, even after this, the king's heart swells again with pride. He has one more dream, a great tree filling the earth, sheltering every creature. And then a voice from heaven cut it down. Daniel, trembling, tells him what it means. "O king, the tree is you, and unless you humble yourself, you'll be brought lower than you can imagine." A year later, Nebuchadnezzar stands on his palace roof, looking out over Babylon, and says, "Is this not the great city that I have built by my own power for my own glory?" And the words are still in his mouth when his mind breaks. The king is driven out from among people. He lives in the fields like a beast. He eats grass like an ox. His hair grows long and matted, and his nails become like the claws of a bird. For 7 long seasons, the man who ruled the world crawls in the wet grass, until he finally learns the one thing this whole book is trying to teach, that the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to anyone he wishes. And at the end of it, Nebuchadnezzar lifts his eyes to heaven, and his reason returns to him. And this proud, broken king blesses the King of Heaven, the one who is able to humble those who walk in pride. Years pass. Nebuchadnezzar dies, and in time, a new king sits on the throne of Babylon. His name is Belshazzar, and Belshazzar has learned nothing. One night he throws a great feast for 1,000 of his lords. The wine flows freely, and in his drunken pride, he calls for something unthinkable. "Bring me the sacred cups," the gold and silver vessels his forefather had carried off from the temple of God in Jerusalem. And they drink their wine from the holy cups of God, and toast their idols of gold and silver, of bronze and iron and wood and stone. And in that very hour, it happens. The fingers of a human hand appear out of the empty air and begin to write upon the plaster of the palace wall. The king watches the hand as it writes, and the color drains from his face. His knees knock together. His whole court falls silent. Glowing marks, burning on the wall, in words that no one in the room can read. Not one wise man can interpret it. And then the old queen remembers a man from the days of Nebuchadnezzar, a man with the spirit of the holy God in him. Daniel. Daniel was brought in, an old man now, gray but utterly unbroken, and he reads the writing on the wall. 4 words, Mene, Mene, Tekel, and Parsin, and their meaning is a sentence of doom. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Numbered, weighed, divided. The whole of a proud man's life, measured in 3 words, on the very night he thought himself untouchable. That very night, the words came true. Belshazzar the king was killed, and Babylon, the head of gold, fell to another empire before the sun came up. The statue was already crumbling. Gold was giving way to silver, exactly as the dream had said. A new empire, a new king, Darius the Mede, and the same old Daniel, now in his 80s, still so trustworthy that the new king sets him over the whole kingdom, which makes the other officials burn with envy. They comb through his whole life, looking for a single crime, a single scandal, and they find nothing, because there is nothing to find. So they realize the only way to trap this man is through his God. They flatter the king into signing a law. For 30 days, no one may pray to any god or any man, except to King Darius himself. And the penalty is the den of lions. Daniel hears that the law has been signed. And what does he do? He goes home. He opens the windows of his upper room toward Jerusalem, just as he always has. And he gets down on his knees 3 times a day and prays. No hiding, no compromise, not defiance for its own sake, just a man who will not stop talking to his God because a piece of paper told him to. They catch him, of course. That was the whole point. And they drag the law before the king. And Darius is devastated. He loves Daniel. He spends the whole day searching for a loophole. But the law of the Medes and Persians cannot be revoked, not even by the king who signed it. So at sunset, Daniel is thrown into the den of lions, and the king, with grief in his voice, calls down into the dark, "May your God, whom you serve so faithfully, deliver you." A stone is rolled over the mouth of the den, and the king goes home and cannot eat and cannot sleep and waits for the dawn. At first light he runs to the den, and he cries out in a voice of anguish, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God been able to save you?" And out of the dark comes a voice, calm, alive. "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found innocent before him." Daniel is lifted out without a scratch, because he trusted in his God. And this is the end of the first half of the book. 6 stories, 1 message, hammered again and again. Kings rise, kings fall, empires burn like paper. But the God of heaven and the ones who trust him remain. And here the book turns. And it becomes strange, because the second half of Daniel is not stories. It is visions. Wild, symbolic, apocalyptic visions given to Daniel himself in the night. And in a way, they carry the very same message as the first half, only now seen from a great height. In the first vision, Daniel watches 4 great beasts come up out of a raging sea. A lion with the wings of an eagle, a bear raised up on one side with ribs in its teeth, a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads, and a 4th beast, terrifying, dreadful, with great iron teeth, crushing and devouring everything in its path, and 10 horns upon its head. 4 beasts, 4 kingdoms. The same 4 kingdoms as the statue, wearing a different face. Only now they are not gold and silver. They are monsters, clawing their way up out of the chaos of the sea. That is how the empires of earth look from the ground, glittering, golden, magnificent. And this is how they look from heaven, as beasts. And then the vision shifts, and Daniel sees a throne. Thrones are set in place, and one called the Ancient of Days takes his seat, his clothing white as snow, his hair like pure wool, his throne a river of fire. The court sits, the books are opened, and the terrible 4th beast, for all its iron teeth, is judged and destroyed in a single moment. And then comes the strangest thing Daniel has ever seen. With the clouds of heaven, there comes one like a son of man. Not a beast rising up from the sea, a human figure coming down from above. And he is brought before the Ancient of Days. And to him is given dominion and glory and a kingdom, so that all peoples and nations should serve him. And his dominion is everlasting, one that shall never pass away. There it is again, the stone cut from the mountain, the kingdom that outlasts all kingdoms, only now given to a figure who looks like one of us, and yet rides the clouds like God. Centuries later, a man from Nazareth would stand before his accusers and take that exact title for himself, the Son of Man. It was the one name Jesus used more than any other for who he was, and the visions keep coming. A ram with 2 horns charging across the world, and then a goat from the west with a single great horn between its eyes, striking the ram down. And this time, an angel names them out loud. The ram is the kings of Media and Persia. The goat is the king of Greece, kingdoms that would not rise for hundreds of years, seen and named in the dark. This is why the book has unsettled and thrilled its readers for so long. And then comes one of the most debated passages in the whole Bible. It begins with Daniel on his knees. He has been reading the prophet Jeremiah, who wrote that Jerusalem's desolation would last 70 years, and Daniel prays. He confesses the sins of his people and begs God for mercy, and the angel Gabriel comes to him with an answer. Not 70 years, but 70 weeks. 77s are decreed for his people and his holy city, to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. 70 weeks. An anointed one who comes, and an anointed one who is cut off. A city and a sanctuary destroyed once more. And here, more than anywhere, honesty is essential. Few passages have been argued over more than these verses. Some read the 70 weeks as a countdown to the coming of Christ. Others see them fulfilled in the centuries just after Daniel. Others read them as a map of the very end of history. Sincere believers have held every one of these views. The passage is deliberately veiled. And perhaps that is the point. It hands us not a calendar, but a certainty. That God has numbered the times, that history is going somewhere, that it is not an accident, and it is not out of control. And that raises the great question that hangs over the whole book. When was it written? Some scholars place it in the 6th century before Christ, in Daniel's own lifetime. True prophecy, seeing empires before they ever rose. Others place it in the 2nd century, amid a later crisis. Faithful Christians have held both. But whichever way you read it, the book's own claim never changes. That the God of heaven knows the end from the beginning, and that no empire, however monstrous, can escape his hand. And so we come to the last vision, and to the promise that all of it has been building toward. An angel shows Daniel the end, a time of trouble like nothing the world has ever seen. And Michael, the great prince, rising to stand guard over God's people. And then a sentence appears that had almost never before been spoken so plainly in all of Scripture. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Resurrection, the dead, rising. Death itself, revealed as only a sleep, one from which the God of heaven can wake his people. And those who are wise, the angel says, will shine like the brightness of the sky, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Daniel is told to seal up the book until the time of the end. Some things are not yet for him to understand. And then, the very last words God speaks to this old man after a lifetime of exile, and lions and kings and visions too heavy to carry. Go your way till the end, and you shall rest, and you shall stand in your allotted place at the end of the days. You shall rest, and you shall rise. It is a promise whispered over an old man in a foreign land, and over every grave that has ever been dug since. So what is the idea? The single thread running underneath every story and every vision? It is this: that God is sovereign over every empire that has ever terrified the earth. The gold and the silver and the bronze and the iron, the lion and the bear and the leopard and the beast, Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar and Darius. Every one of them just a layer and a statue waiting for the stone. And that is why a young captive could refuse the king's food. Why 3 men could face a furnace and say, "But if not." Why an old man could kneel at an open window with a death sentence hanging over him and simply pray. Because they knew a secret about power. that the loudest, strongest, most golden kingdom in the room is never the one that lasts. The kingdoms of gold always fall. The kingdom of the stone never does. And here is why that is not just ancient history. You live under empires too, not of gold and iron perhaps, but of fear, of money, of the opinion of the room, of whatever it is that demands you bow or else. And the book of Daniel leans across 2,500 years and asks you the same question it asked them: what will you bow to? Because everything that roars at you to bow is a kingdom of gold, loud and dazzling and already crumbling at the feet. And there is one kingdom that is not. One stone cut from the mountain by no human hand that will still be standing when every throne on earth is dust. Daniel bet his whole life on it, in the furnace, in the den, at the tables of kings. And he was not delivered from every fire, but he was never, not once, alone in one. That is the promise this strange old book leaves in your hands, that the God who numbers the empires also numbers you, and that the last word over the dust of your life is not contempt. It is this: you shall rest and you shall rise.